Hey, everybody, welcome back to our final lecture for Women in Ministry. You made it. I appreciate your hard work thus far. And for today's lecture, we are doing You Asked for It Part 2, addressing specific questions that you may have about women in ministry. And so I'm grateful that this has been an opportunity for us to have this kind of exchange and hopefully help answer some questions, get you further down the road in terms of thinking about your calling, the calling for women in ministry, and how we can all be faithful to that. Okay, so one question that was submitted had to do with balance, having balance in different seasons of life. And I will, first of all, give you the disclaimer that I hate the term balance because I feel like it's a very unrealistic goal. I think the balance, you're thinking about, like I sometimes I maybe have some balance issues, right? You think about walking, you're on a balance beam and you're trying not to fall off. I think about that with life in general. And I think, or juggling, you're trying to keep all the balls in the air. And I think that, maybe a different way to think about this, and this idea is not original with me. I read a book many years ago, kind of shaped my thinking, but thinking about rhythms. And it may just be semantics, but it kind of gets to the same end goal, is that we have these things that we want to accomplish, particularly as women. We have these things that we want to accomplish, and these responsibilities and all the areas in which we need to serve and how we need to stay connected and all of that. But it's just very unrealistic to think that, let's say if you have five life things that are really important, whatever that would be to you, if it's husband, kids, and job and ministry, and then friends or friends, family combination, whatever that would be. It's very unrealistic to think that you could hold all five of those things in balance. I don't mean to be depressing, but that's just kind of the truth. And that sort of helps us think about how we can pursue balance moving forward. And so the way I try to think about it is that that's the notion of rhythms. And so what is the top priority right now in this season? And what is God speaking to me? Okay, so let's just throw this out here. If you are a mom, that's kind of it, right? You got one shot, you got 18 years. So there's probably never a time when you can say, um, yeah, my 8-year-old's not going to be my priority right now, or I don't want to be misunderstood, or there never should be a time when we're like, my husband's not my priority right now. I'm pursuing other things. So there's some things right out the gate. But I think you're probably asking specific questions in terms of how can you prioritize and how can you have peace in your life knowing that you are focusing on the right things, right? So that's what I'll speak to. And I would say for me, some of that, a lot of that really is um, trying to ascertain God's voice and the specific focus that He would have for me in each season. I think if you think about life in seasons, it's much more helpful. It's very easy to feel like whatever you're facing in this moment, this is it. And so then it becomes really challenging, um, especially if it's a season that's kind of yucky, to think, oh, wow, so this is it. I have these desires, I have these gifts, I have these callings, but it doesn't feel like it's ever going to go anywhere. Well, I think if you can see things as a season with sort of start and stop times, and then other seasons come and go, you can see that ebb and flow, and that's how you can feel the rhythm of life and walk into that. And so, for example, for me, the season that I'm in, I am in a season where it feels like there are lots of opportunities for ministry in my life, maybe that I didn't have in the past. And some of them are exciting, and some of them I'm able to walk through. Some of them right now, because my son needs me, because my husband needs me, because my church needs me. Some of them I need to turn down. And, that can have you kind of feel a certain way unless you realize, hey, these are all elements of my ministry. These are all elements of my calling. But I've learned that when we put God first, He reopens doors that we were not equipped to walk through in that season. And He does it when the season is right. And so I'll give you an example. Right now in my life. Okay, so we're church planters. We've been here for 16 years. Um, there's a lot that's established. Of course, there's always more that needs to be established, and you need to take things to the next level. But God has opened some very specific doors for ministry in my life with some things outside of our church. And so I have I've had to very prayerfully consider, okay, Lord, what, of course, my husband and I are still pastoring the church. We're not released from that, nor do we want to be released from that. But there are some very worthwhile ministries that you have placed, some areas of need for my involvement that you've placed right here in front of me, and ascertaining your will, your call, your voice, Lord. That's been really important. And so what that's forced me to do is to reprioritize some things in church. Okay, so what are some things that are non-negotiable? Like, what are some things that only I can do? And I don't mean that to sound arrogant. I think you need to think about in your life, what are some things that only you can do? Like, I'm the only one who can be a mom to my kid, right? So that's not something I can outsource. But am I the only person at my church who can create ministry team schedules? I don't know, maybe not. Um, am I the, is this the time in my life that I need to focus on this aspect, or do I find someone else to hop in that so that I can focus on what God has for me? And so what that has required for me is really a season of laser focus, a season of extreme intentionality, as well as humility and hunger with God. Now, if I can speak very pointedly, as women, we want to be all things to all people. We want that. And many times, if we're not careful, we get our worth from being caregivers and providing care to all of the people. But I think that, first of all, that's the surest way to burn out. And secondly, you're not going to do anything well. So I think if you can get alone with God, really ask Him, He will really tell you where you need to focus and where you need to be intentional. And if you have that hunger and that humility with God, He will speak that to you. And you'll need to pray for strength to follow through with that, to focus on where He has for you. Um, I would say this to male or to female: pulpit ministry. Even if you are a pastor, you're full time on staff as a pastor, pulpit ministry is such a small portion of what you do. That's not to say that it's not important, but it's such a small portion. So seasons come, seasons go. You have to ebb and flow, but you need to walk closely with the Lord to ascertain the season that you're in. You need to consult with the leaders in your life. Whoever is the pastor over you, you need to consult with your spouse, consult with other family members, so that you can walk in rhythm in different seasons of your life. Okay, so another question was, what has been the worst experience in ministry as a woman that have you had, and how did you handle it? So I would say that probably what I'll focus on is maybe not the worst, but I think it was the worst at that time, if that makes sense. Um, it I've probably experienced worse things since then, but because I was at a most vulnerable time in my calling, in my ministry, that probably was the most consequential. struggle, I guess I would say. And so, um, my husband and I were newlyweds, and we were on staff at a church, and it was just a very different experience than what we signed up for. Is probably the best way that I could say it. We came to the church and under the notion that we're very supportive of women in ministry, and actually we came to that church because of a connection I had, not even because of my husband's connection. They loved him, and it was a great church, great people, wonderful people. They loved us. They were great to us. But when we got there, it just played out very differently. And so, probably the best way I can say it is their view of women in ministry was very different from mine and my husband's. And so, um, there really were no opportunities for me to serve in any kind of formal way in the church. So it was a very different situation for me because I've always been very active in church and very much that's my life goal is ministry, right? But what I did, I would say that it was so formational for me because I found a way to serve outside the pulpit, and I found a way to faithfully serve outside the pulpit. Um, I made relationships. I loved on people. I found people who were vulnerable and who were on the margins, and I reached out to them and I pulled them in. And I truly sought to disciple and to pour myself into other people. And let me tell you, that's the best lesson I could ever learn in my life because people are the point. Doesn't matter how many beautiful sermons you preach, people are the point. And so it it taught me truly what ministry was. And it showed me that if I want to make a difference in the world, God will always open doors. He'll always open doors for ministry. It may not be what you think it would be, it may not look like what you think it would look like, but He always will. And so then I think really that sort of set the foundation for moving forward. You can choose to be bitter, you can choose to be better, to let it make you better. And so I think that again, that was such a vulnerable time in my life and formational time in my life and in my ministry. And so I really had to hold on to God in that situation. I think since then, in general, the worst experiences in ministry that I've had as a woman, they're probably not even that unique as a woman. It's probably common to anyone in ministry. It's been when I've been betrayed by those closest to me, those that you invest the most in. And so the flip of that lesson that I learned, that people are the point, people are the point, and people can also hurt you the most. Um, but when you deeply love the Lord, you will deeply love His people. And um, I would love to say that when I've been hurt or wounded, that I've always responded with a pure heart, but that would not be true. I would say that I'm human and I'm trying, and I purpose in my heart to not become bitter. I purpose in my heart to give things over to the Lord, to surrender to Him, and to not become jaded and to continually focus on His blessings, His calling, His goodness, His mercy, and His grace. Whether you're male or female, that's got to be your foundation for ministry. And finally, a question was asked, what resources would you offer a lady who is seeking to live out her calling? And I hope this class has been a wonderful resource for that. I would say some resources that are connected to uh, the UPCI are the Women in Ministry Network. Um, there are resources available for that. If nothing else, for building mentoring relationships and for finding someone maybe that you can bounce ideas off of, friendships. So I would strongly encourage you to seek that out. I believe there's a Facebook group for that still, but you could contact headquarters and they could get you connected with that. Urshan sponsors the Deborah Project, and so maybe some of you have heard of that or been part of that, and that's a great way for young women in ministry to come up Again, networking, connecting with others, praying through your calling, building relationships. And then Jessica Marquez has a ministry that she has entitled Women Ministering to Women. And I would say that title is a little misleading because it's not it's not just women. It's not women who only minister, say like in ladies ministry or something like that. The notion is we are women called to ministry. We are ministering to each other through this. And so she has conferences and resources and so many amazing things. She's amazing. So I think that would be a great resource for you. Outside of our circles, one great resource that I follow is Christine Kane, and she has a she's got a ministry that's entitled Propel. And so it provides lots of resources for women in ministry. I would say that doctrinally there are a number of differences that are held. So, like anything that you would read that may come from a different doctrinal standpoint, you take what applies to you and you just move on past the things that don't apply to you. But a lot of great resources in that regard. I want to thank you again for your commitment to this course. I really do hope that it has answered some of the theological questions that maybe you had. I hope it's answered some practical questions. I hope that you have been emboldened to see the need for supporting women in ministry and have a new commitment moving forward in that as a part of your calling. And I want you to know that I'm happy to be a resource for you moving forward, any way that I can support you, any way that I can connect with you and uplift you on this journey. And I love to hear what you're doing in ministry beyond this course. So stay in touch. Let me know how things are going for you. And if there's any way I can support you, please don't hesitate to let me know. Thanks for getting all your assignments in quickly this week. It's a short week with a quick turnaround, and we'll get everything taken care of with your grades. Again, it's been such a delight to be with you all, and I'm inspired by the passion that you have for the kingdom of God, and I'm cheering for you. I'm in your corner. Have a great rest of your week. God bless you.